All right.
Sorry for that delay.
Yes. Technology, glitches happen.
Yes, yes. Thankfully, Kelly got us in. So,
Yay. All right. So do we just start off? Should we just do get going?
well, Kelly's not here to do kind of an intro. So I guess I can go ahead and do it. We're so happy to have Denise Hyde from the Eden Alternative here for our October um, Nebraska Culture Change Coalition Coffee with the Coalition. And yeah, like I said, we're sorry for that little delay get going here, but we're so glad to have Denise. And Denise, go ahead and take it away.
All right. All right. So I am the membership engagement guide for the Eden Alternative. That's my job, and I've been engaged with the Eden Alternative for a long time. And so yes, I definitely want to talk about the Eden Alternative, but I want to back the story up a little bit. I was introduced to the Eden Alternative back in the late 1990s when Dr. Bill Thomas came to Omaha. We made that happen at my community, and I was hooked. I was hooked on Eden because as the pharmacist sitting every day watching the elders and hearing what was going on in the home and reading the chart and looking at all the lab values and looking at their medications and trying to figure out how do we help these people have more and better life. When I heard loneliness, helplessness, and boredom, which is the first principle of the Eden Alternative, I went, that's what's going on. It isn't about the meds. It's about the environment. It's about how we're engaging the elders. It's about how we're helping them find purpose and not just be bodies existing until they die and doing our best to try to medicate their way through that. So that totally changed my career path, totally changed what I was interested in doing. Still a pharmacist, still working on improving and optimizing medication use, but I'll get into that too. But I also want to tie the Nebraska Culture Change Coalition into this because, that was my one community. But others were interested as well, and others were trying to change the way they were interacting with and caring for elders. So as I was doing training across the state of Nebraska, I met lots of great people who were like-minded and wanted to see elder care change. And so we finally got together in 2004 with other people that were excited about this in the state of Nebraska. And some of you will remember us bringing the And Thou Shalt Honor town hall meeting to Nebraska. We did a recording in Kearney with the Nebraska Public Television Network, and I don't know how we pulled that off, but it was the most amazing experience to hear all these experts from all across Nebraska and beyond talking about how it can be different and how we can work together to make a difference. And that really kickstarted the coalition. And it's been my pleasure to be a part of the leadership team ever since then, and watch this coalition get stronger and stronger and stronger. So while I'm talking about Eden today, because that's where my heart is, that doesn't mean it's the only way. And the coalition is about bringing all kinds of different ways together to figure out how we change the experience of aging in the state of Nebraska. So I invite you that if that is in your heart and soul, connect up with the coalition. We need more leaders. We need more people excited. We need to get the word out. We need to spread this change because the pandemic really slowed things down. And it really brought to mind just how dangerous the medical model way of doing things and thinking about things can totally pull us way off course from how we provide human care and help human beings have good quality of life. So I wanted to bring the coalition in on this because you guys are a part of the story. So let me just say, there are people who are listening, who have been trained with Eden, who have done the Eden implementation in their communities. I've met many leaders over all these years, who have done amazing work in the state of Nebraska, and I want to celebrate them. Because it is hard work. It is hard work to fight against the chaos and the commotion of the institutional system and try to make it different. So I want to celebrate all of you. And I also want to welcome people for whom this may be the first time you've heard about Eden and person-directed care and what is this all about. And I hope that you hear something that inspires you to engage in some way in changing the culture of care in your place. So, like I said, I'm sitting at the nurse's desk and I'm watching the room of elders all lined up every day when I would go down and do my 30-day pharmacy reviews and review the meds and review the labs and figure out what changes need to be made. And I am not a prescribing kind of pharmacist. I'm about really what does this person actually need to have good quality of life, and let's get rid of all the rest. So I did my best to reduce medication use while I was there, think about different ways we could look at medications, reduce the number of med passes. We did some really cool things that made a difference in people's lives, and I'm very proud of the work that we did. But it was the first principle, the idea that loneliness, helplessness, and boredom um, are detrimental to our health and they're painful and destructive to our health and well-being. And when I started teaching about that in 1999, and when Bill Thomas was teaching about it before then, people were skeptical. They're like, what is this person talking about? I mean, seriously, loneliness, helplessness, and boredom, that's not even in the medical manuals. It's not in the resources and the books that we use to tell us how to provide treatment to people as they're aging. But what I love is that that has changed. There is now research, powerful research. So he set in motion circumstances that led to research that actually states that loneliness is as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That helplessness, especially the learned helplessness we create when we do everything for the residents and the people that we support versus engaging them and building on their strengths, that helplessness can lead to depression, to anxiety, and even people can get like PTSD from that. And it affects their cognition, leading to them looking like they have dementia when all they have is that nobody's asking them to engage, to contribute, to give as well as receive. And then boredom, you might think like, oh, boredom is cool. I would love to have more boredom in my life, right? But the truth is, when everything is the same every single day, and there is nothing new, there is nothing exciting, there's nothing going on, that creates stress. That affects your mental health. You become depressed, you become anxious. And so these three things, loneliness, helplessness, and boredom, they really are painful and detrimental to our health and well-being. So that was my hook. When I heard that, when I had seen it with my own eyes with the veterans that we took care of at our place, I went, ah, that's what's going on, and we don't have the right approach. So when I met Dr. Bill Thomas, I was like, yeah, I can see where this makes sense, where this makes a difference. So the Eden Alternative is based on 10 principles. I'm going to quickly walk you through them. And then the goal of the principles is to give you a framework, kind of a compass in terms of like how do you make decisions and how do you know that this is actually going to be a good thing versus a not so good thing. And so that's really kind of what the principles are. They kind of give you a basis. And I teach about this for days. So I can tell you that in less than 30 minutes, you're going to get a really light touch. But there's so much depth and so much possibility when you focus on principles rather than a checklist and a model. And we have to do these things in this way. And so that's what I love about Eden. So the problem statement is principle number one. I've told you what that is. Principle number two is the solution. And the solution is to create a caring, inclusive, and vibrant community where everybody can experience well-being, regardless of age, regardless of ability. And that's what our goal is to create an environment where we care. And I don't mean we have a list of tasks to get done so that we get the right billing done for the reimbursement. No, I'm talking about is that genuine human caring where you want people to grow and to evolve and to find their purpose and contribute and be engaged. That's the kind of caring that we're talking about here. And when we talk about inclusive, yeah, we mean inclusive of all people, of all ages, of all abilities, that people know they belong, that they have relationships, that there's a connection there, and they know that they're included, they're a part of it. And then vibrant is the fun part. And we used to be known as the place that was the approach that was all about the cats and the dogs and the birds. And yes, that's a part of creating vibrancy in the community is to have different species beyond human beings present to have color, to have texture, to have pleasing sights and sounds and smells, things that get people engaged and connected up with their environment. So, and then the last thing I want to say about community, and this is what people have taught me over the years, is you can't just say, ta-da, we're a community. Community is something that people have to actively work towards. It is something that's fragile. It is something that you have to negotiate, that you have to find common ground and common goals and yeah, I like it this way and you like it that way, but like how do we coexist in that environment? So how do we really create community and not just call ourselves a community? So that's the answer. The answer is to create that caring, inclusive, and vibrant community where people of all ages and all abilities can actually experience well-being. And that's, again, big, wide, huge, lots of work that can be done on that. And then we have three principles that are about the antidotes to loneliness, helplessness, and boredom, because there is no drug that has been studied and indicated to overcome loneliness, to overcome helplessness, to overcome boredom. So, what we need is loving companionship. That is the antidote to loneliness. And every person has different things they want a companion with, if you will, that give them that help them overcome loneliness. Because some people it's about their pets. Some people it's about their garden. Some people it's about nature. Some people it's about other human beings. And it's not just any human being. To find a companion, there's certain things you're looking for. And my definition of companion is nothing like Natalie's, and I'm sure it's nothing like yours either, Jenna. I mean, I think we all have kind of a different definition of what constitutes companionship. But again, in an institution, it's about human beings hanging out with human beings, and we think, whew, they got a lot of people around. Why can't they find companionship? And yeah, there's something to that. So, how do we help people find the companionship that meets their needs? And then helplessness. Helplessness is about the idea that you get into this loop where you're always receiving care, but you have very little chance to give care. You have no control. You have nothing to give back anymore, and all you are is just somebody that needs and is dependent on other people. And then you've got the opposite situation where you're always giving care, but you may not feel like you receive it all the time. So helplessness, as with loneliness and boredom, is something we all experience. This is not just an aging thing. This is an all of us experience. So we believe that with helplessness, you've got to give people an opportunity to give as well as receive, and do your best to balance that for that person. And I think sometimes we look for giving and receiving to be really big, but sometimes it's really small. So that elder that smiles at you in the morning, that individual that takes time to just crack a little joke, to ask you how your family is, that's giving. To say thank you, that's giving. And so we have to really think about how do we create opportunities to thank the residents as well as give them an opportunity to thank us. And how do we do that together? Principle 5, the antidote to boredom is variety and spontaneity. And not the bad kind of, oh my God, this just happened variety and spontaneity, but the kind of variety and spontaneity that makes you smile, that gives you joy, that you didn't expect to happen. And then you spend the next 3 days saying, oh my gosh, do you know what happened? And you have a story to tell. That's what we're talking about. How do we create an environment where people can just do off the cuff things that bring joy to each other, that create an environment that is nurturing and joyful and playful? That's what you're looking for, to overcome the boredom. And then the next three principles are about our practices. And again, there's so much richness I could go into, and so I'm just giving you a real light touch. But it touches on three aspects of daily life that we are kind of led by the institutional model to go in a certain direction. But if we changed directions, it would make all the difference in the world. So, Principle 6 says that meaningless activity corrodes the human spirit. And meaning is unique to each of us and is essential to health and well being. Again, there's research that shows people whose lives lack meaning, they have a high rate of mental health illness like depression, anxiety, and stress. They also have an increased risk of heart disease, stroke, and dementia. So, meaning is essential to our health and well being. And so, how do we find out what people's life passions are? What do they still want to accomplish in their life? And how do we make that happen? What is something new they want to learn and do? How do we make that happen for people? And not just keep people busy so they're out of our hair while we document. And just really figure that out. And so I love, love, love talking to activity professionals that really have figured it out. And yes, bingo can be meaningful. I'm not crunching against the bingo games because they can be fun. But that isn't the only thing. So what are the other things we could do to really create meaning? And I mean, I've got a team that just did a presentation talking about their iGen classroom. They have sixth graders that hang out in the elders' home and they do their classwork and their science experiments with the elders and they do reading and write. I mean, talk about meaning. Wow. Meaning, meaning, meaning. Principle seven, of course, is my favorite principle because it is about the idea that we are more than our diagnoses and that medical treatment should support and empower us to experience a life worth living. So I am all about optimizing medication use and treatment use. And I found in my own experience that when we addressed the loneliness, the helplessness, and the boredom, the need for the medications went way down. And then when Eden Alternative started talking about our domains of well-being and you started focusing on those, wow, the needs for medications went down even further. We've got one team in Arkansas, and you can listen to in on the Eden Alternative podcast. There was one team in Arkansas going around trying to reduce antipsychotic use by using our domains of well-being, and they have seen like a 20% reduction in psychotropic drug use in people living with dementia or more. It's incredible what they have discovered because they're looking at people's well-being and not just sustaining their status quo. So I'm all about reducing and optimizing medication use where it makes sense. I worked with the 6 teams in Colorado on optimizing medication use. Those nursing teams found 3.6 more hours a day that they were not giving meds. Imagine what your team could do with 3.6 more hours of nursing time every day because you're not loading up people on meds and that person is not chained to that med cart for hours and hours and hours a day. And then lastly, and I think this is where the rubber really hits the road, is our principle number 8. And principle number 8 says, decision making must involve those most impacted by the decision when empowerment activates choice, autonomy, and influence. And if you think about who's coming into the work environment right now, who are our care partners for the future, they don't want to be told what to do. They want to have a voice. They want to design their work. They want to have choice in what that looks like. And the same is true for people who are aging and now need our support. They want to have a voice. They want to have a choice. And so principle number 8 is like the hardest to get to because believe me, when you've worked your way through your career and now you're the big wig and everything rests on your license, it's easy to say, no, 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 I have to make that decision. It's hard to give that up. And I get that, totally get that. But leaders who have been able to change their mindset to make that transformation, they are able to do what they actually want to do in their role and not spend all day making everybody's decisions for them. And the elders are getting what they want when they want it. Their needs are being met. There's less conflict. There's less stress. Everybody is happier. And the employees are not told what to do. They're engaged in finding out how to do their work better. So they come up with answers that are meaningful that they're going to support and keep growing with. So I love this principle, but it is the hardest one for people to get to because you got to challenge some long held beliefs and assumptions. And then the last 2 principles are all about bringing about change. So, principle 9 is the idea that building a collaborative and resilient culture is a never ending process. We have to keep learning, developing, and adapting. So, how do we create that culture? How do we create a place where we want to keep everybody learning, lifelong learning for everybody? Everybody gets to learn, everybody gets to grow. Everybody has the opportunity to adapt and flex and change their direction and we can be responsive to people's needs in the moments. That's the kind of it takes leadership to get that happening. But when we can create that kind of culture, yeah, that's a place people want to come and live in, and that's a place people want to come and work in. And then principle 10 is about wise leadership because wise leadership is the key to meaningful and lasting change. And for it, there can be no substitute. And it would be easy to say that this rests on people with formal titles that may or may not be around me at this moment. But the truth is, we all have leadership capacity within us. So, how are we being nurtured and grown to be the leaders we can be, to really advocate for people that need support, that want our support? And how do we find that leadership? Because you need a bench, it takes a village. It's not a one person job. And I mean this even people in relationships, carrying partnering relationships in their own home, that you have to see yourself as a leader, as an advocate. When you walk into the doctor's office, when you go to those appointments, when they're at the hospital, they need leaders. Everybody needs to have their advocate, their person who's going to step up and speak up for them. So that's the 10 principles. Then the goal is to get to 7 domains of well-being, to make sure everybody has strong well-being. And we define well-being as a strong sense of identity. And think about that because, sometimes the way we identify people is really strange. We identify them by their diagnosis. We identify them by their room number, the amount of assistance they need. We identify them as we use all kinds of just icky words to describe somebody instead of just using their name. And, and it's really, really interesting how we get into this language piece around identity. So, yes, I have a sense of what my identity is, but Natalie's known me for a couple of years now, and she probably has a sense of my identity that may be different because our identity is partially held by ourselves, but it's also held by everybody around us. And the identity you hold of people, the words you say in your head about them, does affect your emotional energy around them and it affects their well-being, even if you don't say those words out loud. So identity, really important piece to our well-being. And then there's connectedness. And that idea that are we connected? Are we in a place where we're connected to that space, connected to the people in it, connected to the things in it? Do we feel comfortable? Are we able to put our feet up and relax? Are we connected? Do we know the people that are supporting us? Do we have that kind of known relationship? And Eden's all about the relationships. Leadership is all about the relationships. All of this is all about relationships. So connectedness, helping people feel connected. And then there is security. When people are well known, when they are comfortable and connected in their environment, then they're able to relax, to feel more secure. They're not on edge all the time waiting for something to happen. And then there's autonomy. People want, like I said, voice and choice. They want autonomy. So, how do we optimize autonomy to every person? And how do we get to yes when they ask for something that we may not agree with, being the healthcare professionals we are? How do we get to yes anyway? And then there's meaning. Talked about meaning with principle number 6. People need meaning in their life. Growth. Oh, people still, it doesn't matter how old they are, what challenges they're living with, what abilities they have. People want to have new experiences. They want to continue to grow and evolve as human beings. That's a part of what we do as human beings. So, how do we help people experience growth? How do we make that possible with them? And then when we have all of that in place, then we get joy. And that's the last domain of well-being. So when was the last time the light went off in their eyes and they were joyful? They laughed, they smiled. That's what we're seeking. How do we bring that experience to life? How do we create an environment where that naturally bubbles up? So that's the domains of well-being. So that's kind of like our measure of success, how we're doing with doing that. So I want to conclude by saying there's a reason all of you listening to this got into elder care. There was something that touched you and touched your life that made you say, yeah, I want to be engaged in elder care. I want to be in this environment. I want to be close to these individuals. For me, it was my grandparents and the veterans heritage in my family. I thought the veterans home would be the last place that I would work for the rest of my life. I loved the veterans, loved hanging out with them, learned so much. But things change. And life led me in a different direction. But all of you have your own reasons. And I want to just remind you that those reasons are valid. And don't let the institutional ways of doing things smush that out. Don't let them take away your why and build it again. And you can when you engage in person-centered care, when you start looking at what you do through a different lens. And yes, you still need to do what you do, but there's so many other ways you could do it than maybe you're doing it now. And how can you do that? Even just sitting down and getting at eye level with somebody before you start doing something to them and asking them if they're ready to do this, and are you ready to try this, and here's what how you can help me, and build on their strengths. Just those tiny little things that you don't need a policy to tell you to do. You can just do it because you're talking to a human being and you're a human being and relate to them. Little things can make a difference. So I really encourage you to engage with the coalition, find out what we're doing, give us suggestions, get engaged on the leadership team. We need to get this rolling bigger and bigger and bigger, because my day is coming closer and I'm scared. I want it changed. And I would love to have you be a part of that journey. So thank you for your time today, and thank you for listening to me. I hope you got some good stuff out of it.
Thank you, Denise. Awesome. This is great. I don't know if anybody else had any comments, so they wanted to speak up while Denise is still on.
Hi, Denise. This is Anna. You have such just a glorious way with words. That was just beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, Anna, I'm so glad you're on the call. Anna is another
Yes.
amazing leader in the state of Nebraska trying to bring this about. Such a privilege to spend
Oh
time
my
with you.
God. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I wanted to second what Denise mentioned about more involvement in the Nebraska Culture Change Coalition. We're always looking for more leaders, more involvement. So yeah, reach out to me or Denise or Anna or Natalie from Visiting Angels. I did want to mention real quick before we end, we do have an event coming up at the end of the month. It's the Alzheimer's Disease and Dementia Care Seminar. That's being presented by Cameo Rogers. It's in York, Nebraska. Please, I will put in the chat my email. If one of you doesn't have the information, hang on here, I can't type and talk at the same time. Please shoot me an email and I can send that information out, share with your friends. It's going to be a great full day presentation, and it's kind of something that's essential to take the next step toward the CDP certification. So I'm sure Denise and some others could talk even more about that, specifics of it. So
All right.
anything else? Okay, well, thank you, Denise. Thank you for joining us, all of you who are joining us. And I know we'll be posting this recording online as well. So I'm sure we'll have others join us in the next few weeks. Thank you so much, Denise, and everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.